Welcome back to On the Same Page. We are on Daf Mem Daled Amud Aleph, 44a of Maseches Kiddushin, and we are starting 7 lines down on the page at the end of the line where the Gemara says the word Harei Maimer. So the Gemara is discussing a machlokes within a machlokes, a dispute within a dispute. So the Gemara first brought a dispute between the Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda about the following. The Mishnah says in Gittin that a Naira Hamurasa, a Naira, a girl who's between 12 and 12 and a half, who is betrothed, according to the Chachamim, both the girl or her father, either one, can accept a get for her to become divorced. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, no, you can't have them both have rights. Only her father, when she's a Naira, when she's between 12 and 12 and a half, and she's only an Arusa, she's only betrothed, so then only her father is allowed to accept her get. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Now, that's with regards to a get, with regards to divorce. What about with regards to Kiddushin, with regards to betrothal? What rights does the girl have as a 12-year-old, between 12 and 12 and a half, in terms of accepting her Kiddushin? So, Rabbi Yochanan had said, and this is where we have a machlokas within a machlokas, Rabbi Yochanan had said that, actually we'll start with Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish had said that just like the Chachamim argue on Rabbi Yehuda with regards to divorce, and as Rabbi Yehuda says only the father can accept the get, but the Chachamim say either the father or the girl can. So too says Reish Lakish with regards to Kiddushin. According to the Chachamim, according to Rabbi Yehuda, only the father can accept the Kiddushin. According to the Chachamim, they can both accept the Kiddushin. And Rabbi Yochanan said that no, that the Chachamim only argue on Rabbi Yehuda with regards to a get. And they said that while Rabbi Yehuda maintains that only the father can accept the get, according to the Chachamim, both the father or the girl can accept the get. However, says Rabbi Yochanan, when it comes to Kiddushin, the Chachamim agree to Rabbi Yehuda that only the father can accept the Kiddushin, again for a Naira, for a 12-year-old, and the girl cannot. So the Gemara was trying to figure out why, according to Rabbi Yochanan, the Chachamim would differentiate between a get and Kiddushin. Why would they say that when it comes to a get, both the father or the girl is allowed to accept the get, and when it comes to Kiddushin, only the father is allowed to accept the Kiddushin and not the girl herself when she is 12, between 12 and 12 and a half, when she's a Naira? So the Gemara had suggested 2 suggestions, but the last suggestion was that the difference is whether she has a say in the first place, or her side has a say in the first place. When it comes to get, so divorce, so according to Torah law, the girl has no choice. If the husband wants to divorce her, he can by Torah law. And so he just gives her the get and she's divorced. So over there we say it doesn't matter, the father has no say either. So since he has no say in this, it doesn't matter whose domain she's in. Either way, the husband can decide to divorce her, and he could give it to the father, and we say he can also give it to her, because anyways the father won't have a say. It's Baal Karcha, it's against their will that she could get divorced. And that's why the Chachamim say, according to Rabbi Yochanan, according to everyone really, that when it comes to get, either her or her father can receive the get. However, and again, this is specifically for a Naira. I keep saying that, we have to just be clear. It's for a Naira who's getting divorced from Erusin, from a betrothal. If it would be a Nisuim, it would be a different story. Once it hits full-fledged marriage, she's out of the father's domain, even if she's not yet at full adulthood. So that's when it comes to Gitting. But when it comes to Kiddushin, the Chachamim would say, says Rabbi Yochanan, that only the father can accept the get, because can accept the Kiddushin, because there it's their choice. The husband can't force her to marry him. So since it's her side's choice, and whose domain, who has the rights right now over her, it's her father, so therefore it's her father's choice to accept the Kiddushin, and if he accepts it, it's good, but if she accepts it, that doesn't help. That's the differentiation according to Rabbi Yochanan in the Chachamim. So now the Gemara picks up, and it says, again, 7 lines down, end of the line, it says, Harei Maimer. But what about Maimer? We mentioned the idea of Maimer last week. Maimer is a rabbinic invention, we'll say. It's a type of Kiddushin that is used in the context of Yibum. So when a man dies without children and his wife falls to Yibum, so before, the Chachamim instituted that before he does Yibum, which is done just through relations, he should do a Kiddushin. I think they want it to look similar to regular marriage, and so they require a Kiddushin called Maimer. So, required, at least made the option available, and once there's Maimer, so then if they would change their mind and want to do a Chalitza instead of Yibum, and not follow through with the Yibum, they would need to write a get. So that's the idea of Maimer. It's like a Kiddushin, but it's applicable in the context of Yibum. And when it comes to Maimer, it's Midaita. They have the choice whether to accept that Maimer, accept that Kiddushin. So it's a type of Kiddushin, the Gemara is assuming. And so they have the choice. Uktani, and yet we mentioned this last week, that Bein Hi, Ubein Aviyah. That when it comes to Maimer, even for a Naira, or specifically for a Naira, when it comes to a Naira, by Maimer, by Yibum, both her father or her can accept the Kiddushin. So the Gemara is asking that there it's their choice, and yet we give her the right, as much as her father, to accept the Kiddushin. So it seems that it doesn't have to do with whether it's your choice or not. The Gemara tried to say that when it's your choice, when it's the choice of the girl's side, so the girl's side is represented by the father. So there the Chachamim agree that only the father can accept the Kiddushin when she's a Naira. So the Gemara is asking, but we see that by Maimer, even though it's their choice, both her father or her are allowed to accept the Kiddushin. So the Gemara answers, Hasam b'Maimer debal karcha. No. There we're not talking about Maimer being optional. That Brisa holds, the Brisa that says that both her or her father can accept the Maimer, the Kiddushin of Yibum, that's within the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, who holds that the husband can force her to accept Maimer. It's Rabbi Yehuda Anasi de Tanya, because we're learning a Brisa. Ha'ose Maimer b'yavimto shalomi daito. If a man has a woman who falls to Yibum, his sister-in-law falls to Yibum, and he wants to do Maimer, according to Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, he can do it. Shalom Midaita, he can do it against her will. He can just throw her the Kiddushin money and say, now we're, I don't know if the language is Mikudeshes, or here's your Maimer, but he can do it against her will. Harei Mikudeshes, Rashi says, the language is the same. You say the language of Kiddushin, and that works according to Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. You can throw the money at her and say, Harei Mikudeshes, and she has to accept that. So that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. The Chachamim Omrim, and the Chachamim say, Lo Kana, that she's not required, you can't do it against her will. My time de Rebbe, the Gemara asks, what is Rebbe's reasoning? Why does he say that Maimer can work against her will? Gamar mi bia di Yavama, he's learning from the bia, the intercourse by a Yavama, which is how you do Yibum. Then ma bia di Yavama bal karcha, just like when it comes to bia of a Yavama, intercourse with a Yavama, she doesn't have a say in whether she wants to enter this relationship. Again, on a Torah level. Afhachanami, so here too, bal karcha. Here too, the Kiddushin that goes with Yibum can work, bal karcha can work even against her will. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. The Rabbanan Savri, and the Rabbanan hold Yalfinan mi Kiddushin. Now we don't look at Yibum to learn how Maimer works, we look at Kiddushin. Ma Kiddushin de Midaita, and just like Kiddushin, remember Maimer is modeled after Kiddushin. So the Chachamim say that just like Kiddushin, it's Midaita, she has a say in it, it has to be with her agreement. Af hachanami de Midaita, so too Maimer which is used by Yibum, but it's modeled after Kiddushin, also it's her choice. Now, what are they arguing about, really? Rebbe Savar Mili Diavama Miavama Havalelamelav. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi holds something that is working within Yibum, we should learn from Yibum. So the mimer of Yibum, again, it's a type of Kiddushin, a rabbinic type of Kiddushin that we do in the context of Yibum. He says the way that it should function, the laws that govern it should be learned from Yibum, and therefore it should work even against her will. V'Rabbanan Savri Kiddushin mi Kiddushin Havale Lamelav, and the Rabbanan hold that it's a type of Kiddushin, and so we should learn the laws that apply to it should come from Kiddushin, and therefore it should only work if she agrees. So that's the Machlokas Rebbe and the Rabbanan, whether Maimer can work against her will or not. But what the Gemara is doing is it's saying that we had a brisa that said, or we were trying to say, that whenever the girl's side has a say, when it comes to a naira, if her side has a say, it's her father's say, and she doesn't have a right. She's not allowed to accept the Kiddushin, only her father. The Gemara asks, but what about Maimer? Maimer, the brisa says she does have a say, and isn't Maimer something that... Maimer, the brisa says that she's allowed to accept the Maimer, not just her father. But isn't that something that her side of the equation has a say in? So how come she's allowed to accept it? It should only be her father's rights. So to that the Gemara is saying, no, she doesn't have a say. Her side doesn't have a say. Her father doesn't have a say. We're going in the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, who says that the husband, the Yavam, can force the woman to go through with Yibum, and therefore he can do the Maimer even. Everybody agrees that he can force her to go through with Yibum, but he's applying it even a step further and saying even the Maimer he can do against her will. Okay. Now the Gemara says, Hachanami mistaber kommentariets Rabbi Yochanan. The Gemara says the truth is that the reading of the brisa makes sense with the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. Again, we had a machlokas between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish as to what the Chachamim hold about Kiddushin. According to Reish Lakish, the Chachamim hold that just like the father can accept the Kiddushin, so to a naira, just like the father can accept it when she's a naira, she can also be the one to accept the Kiddushin. And Rabbi Yochanan said no. When it comes to Kiddushin, it's different. Then only the father can accept the Kiddushin for the naira, and she can't accept it herself. So the Gemara says that actually Rabbi Yochanan's view of things fits into the brisa. Midiktani seifa, because the end of the brisa says, Masha'enkim b'Kiddushin, as opposed to by Kiddushin. Which brisa are we talking about? The brisa about the Maimer. So the brisa about Maimer, which is quoted on the top of the page, it says, the second line at the top of the page says, V'anaira bein midas atzma bein midas aviyah. When it comes to Maimer, Maimer can be done whether with her agreement or her father's agreement. And then it says, Masha inking b'Kiddushin, as opposed to by Kiddushin. So the brisa says that by Kiddushin, it can't be, she doesn't have a right. It says, when it comes to Maimer, both, it could be with her permission or her father's, as opposed to by Kiddushin. That's exactly like what Rabbi Yochanan is saying, that when it comes to Kiddushin, only the father has the right by a naira, not her. So the Gemara says, Alanema, so we should say, Tiave Tiyufta de Reish Lakish. This brisa should be a Tiyufta, should be a refutation of the opinion of Reish Lakish, who said that even when it comes to Kiddushin, she has a choice. Here it's saying, Masha Enkin Kiddushin, as opposed to by Kiddushin, where she doesn't have a choice. It sounds like this should refute the opinion of Reish Lakish. So Amar Lecha Reish Lakish will tell you, Hamani Rabbi Yehuda he. You know who wrote that brisa? That's Rabbi Yehuda. That's the reason why the brisa says that she's not allowed to accept the Kiddushin is because it's going in the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. That's what Rabbi Yehuda holds, that only the father can accept Kiddushin, not her. But when it comes to the opinion of the Chachamim still maintain, according to Reish Lakish, that she can also accept the Kiddushin. But the brisa is going like Rabbi Yehuda, who says, Ein shtei yadayim zochos ka'achas. Rabbi Yehuda said you can't have two people meriting the same rights. And so if her father can accept the Kiddushin, then she can't. And that's the story for a Naira, according to Reish Lakish. So the Gemara says, I Rabbi Yehuda. So if this brisa is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, Masha Enkin b'Kiddushin, why does he say that by Maimer she has a right, as opposed to by Kiddushin? He should say something even better, something even more novel, and say, as opposed to when it comes to divorce, to Gerushin, which according to Rabbi Yehuda, only the father can accept the get for the Naira from Erison, but she cannot. So that's a bigger chiddush, that's something more novel, because we gave kind of two different svaras, two explanations for why it's more novel, but either of them can technically work. One of them is that when it comes to divorce, she's going back into her father's domain, and yet still, according to Rabbi Yehuda, she still can't be involved in that. Even though it's in her father's interest, she still can't be the one to accept the get. Or, alternatively, another thing that's more novel about saying this, about get, that she can't, is that when it comes to get, it's anyways against her will. And yet, we don't, it's against the father's will, so who cares who has the rights to it? They don't have a choice anyways. So there would make sense to say that she is allowed to receive it, and yet still, the Rabbi Yehuda maintains that she cannot, because you can't have two people meriting the same thing. Only one person has the rights. So it's a bigger chiddush to say, it's a more novel to say Masha Enkin b'Gerushin as opposed to by divorce. Why does he say as opposed to Kiddushin, which is maybe true according to Rabbi Yehuda, but less novel? He's not teaching me as much with that. So the Gemara says, Ein achanami, you're right. It would have been better to say as opposed to by divorce. But Aidi detana maimer didami l'Kiddushin taranami Masha Enkin b'Kiddushin. But since we were talking about Maimer is similar to Kiddushin. Maimer is a copy of Kiddushin. It's a version of Kiddushin. And we were saying that when it comes to Maimer, the girl has the rights to receive the Maimer, to receive that Kiddushin. So we wanted to contrast that with regular Kiddushin. That's why we chose Masha Enkin b'Kiddushin as opposed to by Kiddushin, because that's the contrast to Maimer. It's true that it would have been a bigger chiddush, more novel, to say as opposed to by divorce, but we're talking about Maimer, so we wanted to contrast it with something that's more similar, which is Kiddushin. Okay, so we're coming out, according to Rabbi Yehuda, we're now saying, according to Reish Lakish at least, that this brisa that talks about Maimer is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, and it comes out then that when it comes to Maimer, Rabbi Yehuda says that the girl could accept the Maimer, even when she's a Naira. But when it comes to Kiddushin, she can't. So the Gemara asks, why not? What's the difference? So Maishna Maimer, why is Maimer different? Why is she allowed to be the one to accept the Maimer? The answer is, Hoil v'zikuka v'omedes. Because she's already bound and standing there. See, this is different. Over here, what happened? Her husband died, they had no children, she fell to Yibum. And she's, right now, when she falls to Yibum, she's what we call zikuka l'Yibum. She's attached. She's bonded to her husband's brother. She needs to either do yibum or chalitza, but she needs to do something because there's an attachment right now. She's out at this moment. She's forbidden to be with anyone else, to marry anyone else. So she's already bound to the yavam, to her husband's brother. So that's where we say, well, they're already bound, so she could accept Maimer. Just like her father can, even though she's a Naira, because she's already attached to this man. So that's the difference. As opposed to Kiddushin, they have no relationship yet. She can't be the one to initiate that. So the Gemara says, Hashta da'asis lahachi. Well, now that you're coming on to that reasoning, Rabbi Yochanan nami lo tikshilach meikara. So then, what we asked on Rabbi Yochanan from Maimer in the first place is no longer a question. Originally, the Gemara, after learning the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, the Gemara asked on Rabbi Yochanan, what's his reasoning? Rabbi Yochanan said that according to the Chachamim, there's a difference between get and Kiddushin. According to the Chachamim, when it comes to get, the girl is allowed to accept, the naira can accept the get from Erusin, from betrothal, and when it comes to Kiddushin, when she's a naira, she cannot accept the Kiddushin. The Gemara asked, why is it different? Why does Rabbi Yochanan think it should be different in the Chachamim? The Gemara gave its first answer. The first answer was that the difference is that Gerushin, divorce, is bringing her back into her father's domain when she's a naira. And therefore, we allow her to be the one to do that, not just her father, but her too, because it's in the interest of her father. She's now back in his domain. But Kiddushin takes her out of her father's domain. So there, we gave her father the rights, but we don't give her the rights. The Gemara asked, but what about Maimer? Maimer also, if she is betrothed, and she's a naira, and her husband dies, and they don't have children, so she falls to Yibum. But if she gets chalitza, she goes back to her father's domain. So by accepting Maimer, she's leaving her father's domain, and yet the Brisa says that she's allowed to accept the Maimer. And the Gemara asked, that seems to refute this reasoning that we suggested. We see that even when she's taking herself out of her father's domain, she still has the right to do it. So it must not be dependent on that. Says the Gemara now, what do you mean? Maimer is different. Now we've explained that Maimer is different. So there's no question. That question is not a question anymore. Shani Maimer ho zekukovil medes. Maimer is different because she's already bonding and standing there. It's true that we can say really the reason why she can't accept the Kiddushin is because she would be removing herself from her father's domain as a naira, and that we don't allow her to do. But Maimer, she's also removing herself from her father's domain. That may be so, but there's more reason to allow her to do it because she's already bonded to her husband. She's already in that limbo stage where she's fallen to Yibum. She can't marry anyone else until she either does Yibum or Chalitza. Chalitza will allow her to marry someone else. She has to choose, or he has to choose either Yibum or Chalitza, but she's in this limbo state, but she's already bonded to the Yavam in some way. And so maybe that's where we allow her a say, and she's allowed to accept the Maimer. As opposed to regular Kiddushin, it makes sense, since she's taking herself out of her father's domain, that she's not allowed to be the one to do so. Okay. The Gemara continues, still on this topic. The Gemara quotes the Mishnah. The Mishnah at the beginning of the parak. So the Mishnah said, actually the very first words of the Mishnah, it quotes the Mishnah, Tanan, Ha'ish mekadesh es bito. Sorry, no, it's not the first words of the Mishnah. It's the second part of the Mishnah. Ha'ish mekadesh es bito kishi naira bo ubishlucha. The Mishnah says that a man can betroth his daughter. He can act on her behalf to get her betrothed when she's a naira, while she's still not yet a full adult. Bo ubishlucho. Either he could do it himself, accept the Kiddushin for her, or he could do it through an agent. It sounds like, says the Gemara, bo ubishlucho in. It sounds like he or his agent can. Ba ubishlucha lo, but her and her agent cannot. It sounds like she is not allowed to accept her own Kiddushin. Tiyufta de Reish Lakish. It sounds like this is a refutation of Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish said that just like the Chachamim disagree with Rabbi Yehuda when it comes to get, and say that both her father or her are allowed to accept the get, so too when a naira gets betrothed, both her father or her is allowed to do that. But the Mishnah is implying, no, only her father is allowed, but not her. This seems to refute the opinion of Reish Lakish. Amar lecha Reish Lakish will answer, Hanami Rabbi Yehuda hi. No, this Mishnah is also Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda holds that's Rabbi Yehuda who holds that she cannot accept the Kiddushin. And the Mishnah is going in the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara asks, Mimatzis mukma salak Rabbi Yehuda? Can you really say the Mishnah is going like Rabbi Yehuda? Vaktani Seifa, but later in the Mishnah, it appears later in our Gemara, but I guess it's the same Mishnah. The end of the Mishnah says, Ha'omer le'isha, if a man says to a woman, Hiskachili b'tam razu, he says, become betrothed to me with this date, the fruit. but this date is not worth a shava pruta. It's not worth enough to do Kiddushin. Now, if he would say B'tam Razu, B'tam Razu, B'tam Razu, if he would say with this date, this day, and this day, and they combine to be worth a pruta, that should work. But if he says Hiskadshi B'tam Razu with this date, Hiskadshi li B'zu, and become betrothed to me with this one, and each time he says become betrothed to me in the middle, it's not a Kiddushin. Because she broke up each one with the words become betrothed to me with this. If she had said become betrothed to me with this, 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 and this, then we would combine them. But if she says become betrothed to me with this, become betrothed to me with this, become betrothed to me with this, and none of them are worth a shava pruta, it's not enough to become for Kiddushin to work, even if together they're worth that, but we don't combine them when she separates each one with the words hiskadshi. So that's the Mishnah later, it's the end of the Mishnah, later in the parak. V'amrinan, and we say about that, man tana hiskadshi. Who is the author of this? Whose opinion is this, that when you say hiskadshi, if you separate with the word hiskadshi, it doesn't work, because each one is independent. V'amar Rabba, Reb Shimon Rabba said it's Reb Shimon. What does this have to do? What did Reb Shimon say that has to do with this? So he said something in a very different context, but we are going to borrow from there and say that it applies here too. To Amar, because he said, Ad she'yomer shvuah l'kol echad ve'echad, that one is only liable when he gives a shvuah to each person. What is this talking about? Let's say a person is entrusted by 5 different people to watch their objects. So he's watching Reuben's, wallet, and he's watching Shimon's lamp, and he's watching, 5 people, 5 objects. And they come and they say, we want our objects back that you were watching. And he says that that I don't have it. I guess either he says I never had it, or I give it back to you. So he has to swear to that. Now let's say he lies. So how many transgressions does he have? Meaning how many karbanos will he have to bring for swearing falsely? So if he says one time, I vow that I don't have this, 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 and this, so this opinion is saying that he will only transgress one time because he only took one vow. He combined all the things into one vow, but it was one vow, one karban. And Reb Shimon said, that's Reb Shimon. Ad sheyomar shvuah l'kol echad echad. You have to say shvuah to each one. You would say, I vow that I don't have yours, and I vow that I don't have yours, and I vow that I don't have yours, and then it turns out he's lying, you would be chayiv, obligated to bring a karban for each one. So that's the opinion of Rabbi Shimon when it comes to vows. And just like he says when it comes to vows, you have to say the word I vow each time for it to each time you say the word vow, it separates the statements. So too for Kiddushin, saying hiskadshi each time separates the statements. And if you say hiskadshi li, with become betrothed to me with this date, become betrothed to me with this date, become betrothed to me with this date, that separates them. If they're not each worth if none of them are worth a shava pruta, so then there's no Kiddushin because they were separate. So the seifa, the end of the Mishnah is Reb Shimon. So we're trying to say that this Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda to resolve our question, but the end of the Mishnah is clearly Reb Shimon. V'chitema kula Rabbi Yehuda. Maybe you'll say, no, it's all Rabbi Yehuda. Uviprati savar like Reb Shimon. And he just holds like Reb Shimon when it comes to detailing things out. Meaning just like Reb Shimon holds that when you separate things and you say shvuah, shvuah, shvuah each time, that separates them. And therefore when you say hiskadshi, you say betrothed with this, they would be separated. That's Reb Shimon's opinion. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda holds like that. And maybe the end of the Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. He just holds like Reb Shimon. And therefore we could say the whole Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara says, "Mi savar la." Does he really hold like Reb Shimon about this? He doesn't. V'hatanya, we learn in a brisa. Zaklal. So the first opinion says here's the rule. Kolal eino chayv ala achas. First opinion says if you generalize, meaning you make one shvuah, you say I vow, and then you include everything in it, you only are chayav one karban. You only have to bring one karban. Parat, but if you detail each one out, chayav al kol achas v'achas. You have to bring a karban for each one. Divrei Rabbi Meir. That's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Now the Rashi just says here that you look in Shavuos to understand exactly what Rabbi Meir meant by generalized versus being specific, because we're going to see examples, and whatever he's saying is not one of those examples, but we're not really focusing on Rabbi Meir right now anyways. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, that's going to be important. Rabbi Yehuda says, if a person says Shvua, lo lecha, lo lecha, lo lecha. If a person says, I vow that I don't have what belongs to you, I don't have what belongs to you, I don't have what belongs to you, or I shouldn't say but I don't have what belongs to you, I don't have what belongs to you, I don't have what belongs to you, chayev al kol achas v'achas. He's chayev for each one. So even though he said the word Shvua only one time, that includes everything together, and the word Shvua goes on each one, even though he only said it once, and you would have to bring a carbon. Each one would be considered a lie, a false vow, false oath, and you have to bring a carbon for each transgression. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Rabbi Eliezer says, Lo lecha, lo lecha, lo lecha, v'lo lecha, Shvua. If he says it like this, meaning he says, no, Rabbi Yehuda, in your case, I don't think you will be chayev for each one. I think that counts as one. But when will you be chayev for each one? If you say as follows, I don't have yours, yours, or yours, Shavua. And you say, I swear to that. And it encompasses everything you just said. Chayev al kol achas v'achas. That's where you can include everything. That's where, if you say the word Shavua at the end, and it goes back on everything, then he would be chayev for each one. That's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Shimon Omer. Rabbi Shimon says, Le'olam eino chayev ad sheyomer shvua l'kol echad ve'echad. A person is only obligated if he says shvua l'kol echad ve'echad. If he says the word shvua for each one, meaning he disagrees with all the previous opinions, certainly with Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda had said that if you say the word shvua at the beginning, if you say I vow, and then you say all the things, each one counts as a separate vow. Rabbi Shimon had said, Rabbi Eliezer had said that if you say all the things, then afterwards you say, and it's a vow over all of it, then that actually goes back on all of them. Rabbi Shimon says, no, you have to actually say the word shvua for each one. You have to say shvua to you, I vow to you, and I vow to you, and I vow to you. And if you don't say shvua for each one, then it's not separate vows. It's all one big vow. So, but what do we see? We see that that Rabbi Yehuda does not agree with Rabbi Shimon when it comes to detailing things out. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you can already by generalizing, everything can be included in that. So in our case, was the Mishnah's case is hiskadshi. If he says, become betrothed to me with this, become betrothed to me with this, become betrothed to me with this. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, you don't have to keep saying hiskadshi to separate them into individual pieces. In other words, I guess what follows is, according to Rabbi Yehuda, just like when you say shvua at the beginning, and you say to you, to you, to you, each of those are separate shvuas. So too, if you would say hiskadshi li b'tam razu, b'tam razu, b'tam razu, become betrothed to me with this date, this date, this date, we would say those are already separate, and it doesn't work. Meaning you don't have to keep saying hiskadshi for it not to work. According to Rabbi Yehuda, just saying hiskadshi once at the beginning, become betrothed to me, and then saying this date, this date, this date, that would separate it. And the Kiddushin wouldn't work if each individual date is less than a Shava Pruta. So the end of the Mishnah is clearly not Rabbi Yehuda. This whole thing with hiskadshi, that's Rabbi Shimon and not Rabbi Yehuda. So if the end of the Mishnah is not Rabbi Yehuda, we're going to assume the beginning of the Mishnah is not Rabbi Yehuda either. So we're back to our question. The question was that the beginning of the Mishnah says, Ha'ish mekadesh es bito kishinaira bo v'shucha. A man could betroth his daughter, make his daughter become betrothed. Either he can do it or his messenger can do it when she's a naira. It sounds like only he or his messenger, but she can't. It sounds like she can't. That's a question on Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish said that the Chachamim hold that when she's a naira she could. So Reish Lakish's resolution was, it's not the Chachamim's opinion here, it's Rabbi Yehuda. But the Gemara says it can't be Rabbi Yehuda. We see that the end is Rabbi Shimon, not Rabbi Yehuda. So it can't be Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara says, fine. Ella kula Rabbi Shimon. So what Rish Lakish will tell you is it's Rabbi Shimon. It's still not the Chachamim though. So it's still okay. It's Rabbi Shimon. Ubishlichu savar lak Rabbi Yehuda. You have to say that when it comes to shlichus, meaning when it comes to this case of a naira, it's really not so much about shlichus, about agency. It's more about, I guess maybe she's kind of representing it, but what it really is saying is that that Rabbi Shimon can hold like Rabbi Yehuda, that when it comes to a naira becoming betrothed, she's not allowed to do it. And so the resolution is that the Mishnah still, we can say it's not the Chachamim. The reason why this Mishnah holds that, according to Reish Lakish, that she's not allowed to accept the Kiddushin is because it's not going in the Chachamim. The Chachamim say she could, but it's not going in the Chachamim. It's not going in Rabbi Yehuda either, because we see that the end of the Mishnah is not Rabbi Yehuda, it's Rabbi Shimon. So fine, so let's say the beginning of the Mishnah is Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Shimon just holds like Rabbi Yehuda, but it's not the Chachamim. The Chachamim, according to Reish Lakish, can still maintain that a naira is allowed to accept her own Kiddushin. Okay, the Gemara says, Rabbi Asi lo ala be midrasha. Rabbi Asi one day didn't go to the base madrash. Ashkechei Rabbi Zera. He encountered Rabbi Zera. Amar le, my amar ha'idna be midrasha. He asked him, what did they say in the base madrash today? Amar le, Rabbi Zera said, Afana lo ayo. I didn't go either. They both apparently had the day off. But he said, Rabbi Avin hu da'ayo. Rabbi Avin went to the base madrash. Ve'amar, and he told me that this is what happened in the base madrash today, in the study hall. Kula chavrusa kula Rabbi Yochanan. All the chavrusas, all the people, all the chavrusa here probably just means the chevra, the group. The whole chabura ruled like Rabbi Yochanan, meaning everybody agreed to Rabbi Yochanan that the Chachamim distinguish between Kiddushin and Gerushin. That it's only by Gerushin, only by divorce, that the Chachamim say that a naira is allowed to accept her own get from Erusin, but when it comes to Kiddushin, she's not allowed to. As opposed to Reish Lakish, who says that she is. So everybody said like Rabbi Yochanan, B'tzavach Reish Lakish ki kruchya. And Reish Lakish was screaming out like a kruchya. Kruchya is something like a stork or something. He was screaming out the following, V'yatza v'haisa. He was saying that, but the pasuk says V'yatza v'haisa. That's the pasuk when it comes to Gittin, where it says, and she should go out. She'll go out when she gets divorced, and she'll become married to another person. And we've already learned that we make a hekish. We compare the going out to the marrying again. Meaning we compare divorce to marriage. And in this case, what Reish Lakish was trying to say is that the halachos of gerushin, of divorce, should be consistent with those of marriage. And just like the Chachamim say that the naira is allowed to accept her get, so she's also allowed to accept her kiddushin. That was what Reish Lakish was screaming out. The leka da ashkach be, and nobody listened to him. So the Gemara seems to be saying that the conclusion is like the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, that the Chachamim agreed to Rabbi Yehuda when it comes to kiddushin that the naira cannot accept her kiddushin. Amar lei, so Rabbi Asi asked Rabbi Zera, Rabbi Avin bar Samchu, can we rely on Rabbi Avin? Is he someone reliable? Amar lei, in. So he said back, yes, you can rely on him. Kimin yama latigni. He's like, the way Rashi learns at least is, he's like someone who takes a fish from the sea right into the frying pan. Meaning the report that we received is like, it's like straight from the mouth into our hands, basically. It's like straight from the sea into the frying pan. There's no, it's exactly how it came out. So the Gemara is saying was an accurate report of what happened in the base madrash. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said, Anna lo Rabbi Avin b'Rabbi Chia. This Rabbi Avin who made this report, it wasn't Rabbi Avin b'Rabbi Chia, v'lo Rabbi Avin bar Kahana, or I didn't hear, I guess he's saying, I don't know if it was Rabbi Avin the son of Rabbi Chia, or Rabbi Avin bar Kahana, or Rabbi Avin stam. he's either saying, I didn't hear which one it was, I just heard it was Stam Rabbi Avin, I didn't hear the son of who, or that it was the person known as Rabbi Avin and not one of the ones who we refer to by his father's name, meaning as son of Rabbi Chia, son of Bar Kahana, son of Kahana. And the Gemara says, what difference does it make which one he was? The Gemara says, in order to ask a contradiction of himself on himself, meaning if he would say something contradictory to this, then we would have to try to resolve it. So we want to know which Rabbi Avin this was, so that we can compare what he's reporting to other things that he has said to see if they're consistent. And Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak is saying, he's either saying, I don't know which of these two it was, because I just heard Rabbi Avin Stam, or maybe he's saying, it's not Rabbi Avin bar Rabbi Chia, it's not Rabbi Avin bar Kahana, but rather it's the one that we referred to Stam without referring to him by his father's name. And again, the nafka mina, the practical difference is, if we would have something that appears contradictory, we'd want to know which Rabbi Avin it was who said this, that we would know if it's actually a contradiction in his words or not.